You are listening to the Witch on Wine podcast, the podcast that helps you bewitch your senses with wine and spirits. I'm your host, Yolanda Shoshana of witchonwine.com and wickedpompette.com. Let's get this party started. In this episode, I speak with author Chantal Martineau about her book, How the Gringos Stole Tequila, the modern age of Mexico's most traditional spirit. Martineau spent years immersed in the world of tequila. She met and tasted with leading experts and mixologists around the United States, interviewing academics on either side of the border. She takes us on a historical journey to where we are now in the world of tequila. Tune in to find out all that is the magic of tequila. Talking to Chantal Martineau about her book, How Gringos Stole Tequila, which is so phenomenal. I have so many questions, but I only have so much time. So let's get to how you ended up writing this book. So you write about food and wine and spirits and travel. Why did you decide to focus on writing a book about tequila?
Yeah, well, that's right. I write about wine for a living, and I love to drink wine. And I'm drawn to wine that express a sense of place, the concept of terroir. And first time I had a serious tequila and mezcal tasting, I was like, whoa, this is something that does the same thing as wine does. It expresses terroir, a sense of place.
Wow.
Blew me away, yeah.
So do you remember, the first time that you had this, aha moment? Where were you? Were you on some vacation, or were you, in the city somewhere, or just kind of?
I wish, actually. No, it wasn't working. It was exactly like a wine tasting,
Wow.
We were nosing the glasses, swirling.
Wow.
And I had just never sat down and tasted tequila. I mean, I never drank tequila while I was really thinking about it, the same way you do with wine, where you're contemplating it,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm so fascinated with your book, because it is a lot like wine in a sense, a little stronger. Yeah, I love that. Just a touch. And I think that we wine lovers can look at tequila like that. So how did you come up with the title, How Gringos Stole Tequila?
Yeah, the title, I guess it's a bit, it could be a bit controversial.
Yes.
It might suggest to some people that the gringos are the bad guys in the story, but they're not. Tequila is a spirit that has to be made legally in Mexico, but 7 out of 10 liters are consumed outside of Mexico. And of all those exports, 80% are sold in this country, in the U.S. So that's where the title comes from. It's not, it's an appropriation of a spirit that's from somewhere else. At this point, Americans are drinking more of it than Mexicans are.
Right.
And then there's the fact that Americans, took it and made it their own. They mixed it into cocktails. They popularized the whole lime and salt ritual, which is not how Mexicans drink tequila. But yeah, I would say Americans really made it their own.
I like that because when I saw the title, I got that. And then when I was looking at something, somebody did say, oh my gosh, the name, the title. I'm like, just relax. Have you really read the book? That's what I was thinking. But I think they couldn't even get past the title. But I thank you for clearing that up because I get it. And some people might.
I didn't want to offend any gringos. I'm sorry. Did your publisher have any doubts about calling it? How sure.
Still yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the title was almost a joke in the beginning. I mean, I was like, this is never going to fly. And then, they sort of did their bear market testing and was like, hey, remember that funny title you started with? We're going to go with that. I was like, all right.
Cool.
Because, but in a way, but that's exactly what the book is about. How did a spirit that is made in one country started as, a local, regional family recipe turned into the most popular, cocktail ingredients here in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. I love me some margaritas in the summertime. So So in your book, you mentioned that the tequila business is a $2 billion business. Do you see that slowing down anytime soon, or is like have the millennials decided they love their tequila too as much as they love wine, or do you see a trend happening?
I don't see it slowing down. Yeah, I don't see it slowing down. It's changing. The tequila market used to be different. I mean, we all remember the first tequila we had. It wasn't necessarily a good tequila. It was probably something you did as a shot, and something that might still not be all that pleasant now. And a lot of us now have had really quite nice tequilas that are 100% agave, and those two different types, the mixto, it can be up to almost half other ingredients other than agave, and then the 100% agave. It used to be that the mixtos were the most consumed in this country. And then slowly, if you look at kind of a graph of the two categories, they've crept up to be just about in the same place now. People drink just about as much, quote unquote, good as in 100% agave tequila as they do the quote unquote cheap stuff. And some years they even drink more of it in these last couple of years. So it's not slowing down, it's changing. People are drinking better tequila, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned the agave, which, some people don't even know what that is. So what is agave, and what does it mean when they see it on the label? Some people aren't aware of what they're drinking, so can you give a little bit more about what agave is?
Of course, yeah. You sometimes even see a little picture of this plant. It looks like a cactus or an aloe plant. There are more than 200 different types of agave plant that exist, and
a lot of the kind
that's used. Yeah, there's a lot of varieties. Just like in wine, there's Cabernet and Riesling, and so the kind that it's used to make tequila is the blue agave plant. And it looks like an aloe. It grows as this big plant with the spiky leaves, and it's the heart of it that's used to make the spirit. So once it's ripe, which can take 7, 8, sometimes 10 years, it is the plant that takes a really long time to ripen. They go out into the fields and cut off all the leaves, and then you're left with this big heart that looks like a pineapple, and they call it a piña. And then they take that and cut that up and roast that, and that's what gets turned into tequila.
Wow. Oh, my God. That sounds amazing. The process.
It is amazing. Wow. It's amazing to see. And it is very hard work because these are huge plants and they're sharp. The leaves are sharp. So it's not an easy plant to farm at all.
Wow. So what's the difference between mezcal and tequila?
Well, you might say that tequila is mezcal, or it certainly was when it started out. Tequila is a town in the state of Jalisco, and just like champagne is a real place, and cognac is a place where they make brandy, champagne is a place where they make sparkling wine, tequila was a place where they made mezcal, and that mezcal just got really popular. And mezcal is made all over Mexico. It's just any spirit that is distilled from the agave plant. Okay. And it's from different types. Mezcals can be distilled from different. I mentioned those 200 plus varieties. There are about 30 or so of them, a couple dozen that you can make into mezcal, and they all taste different, and they're all growing in different parts of the country around Mexico. So yeah, there was a time where tequila was just called Mezcal de Tequila, mezcal from the town of Tequila. And it just happened to get very, very popular, that particular mezcal, until it became known as tequila.
Okay. I'm starting to see more mezcal coming out, though, too. Like, is that becoming a little bit more popular as well? It seems like it is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's a natural progression. That certainly was my progression. You get into tequila, you start getting into good tequilas. You're like, wait, hang on, this is interesting. You find these like small craft artisanal producers, and then you're like, what else is there?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Like, what's this? This mezcal is the mother of tequila. So it's kind of like you're if you're going to get into agave spirits, you're going to end up finding out about mezcal and probably falling in love with it because it has all these different varieties. It has all these different regions. So in a way, tequila is a little bit more restricted and doesn't really, with mezcal, you can have so much more variety, so much more diversity of flavor. So it's kind of an exciting thing once you get into it and a bit of a rabbit hole.
I was going to say, that should be your next book.
Well, it might be.
It should be. I think how did you decide? You spoke to all these people, all these amazing people to me when, looking at all this. How did you narrow down who you wanted to speak to, and how did you find the people that you spoke to in the book? Did you do tons of research? Because most of these people probably aren't online, are they? Or how did you find them?
No. Yeah, it was a lot of research. I mean, in tequila, the tequila region, it was a little bit easier, if you go to a distillery, there might be a tasting room. There might be a little bit more like touring wine country. A lot of brands have PR people, and there's often a translator and stuff because I did learn Spanish, as I was researching this book.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, it would have been really smart to bone up on that before I started. But anyway, by the time I made it to Oaxaca, which is the really where most mezcal that is available here in the U.S. comes from. It's in the south of the country. Once I made it to Oaxaca, which was a couple of years into the research, that I just sort of showed up. I was traveling alone. Didn't really know. I had tried to contact a few people, but you're right. There was not a lot of people online, not a lot of people with websites and stuff. But everyone, in a way, it's a real small town.
Right. So everybody knows one another, right?
Everyone kind of knew. It seems like as soon as I got there, everyone knew what I was doing there and had heard that I was in town. And people would invite me to go into these villages to see, how the mezcal is made. And you asked me the difference between tequila and mezcal. I mean, tequila, if you've ever been to a distillery, would feel familiar. Of course, distilling these plants is something there's nothing like that. But the distillery looks like, a small factory in most cases in tequila country. In mezcal country, There's no electricity, there's no lights, there's no building. In some cases, they're cooking the plants underground in these big pits, roasting them.
Oh my
almost
God!
Like a big, underground barbecue over many days, slow roasting over many days, and they're just fermenting the mashed agave. I mean, first of all, some of them are mashing the roasted agave by hand with these big mallets. It's so rustic and. The smell of the cooked agave, it smells like cooked pumpkin. It's just everywhere. And they always set up their distillery next to a beautiful, pristine water source, which is, how it's done anywhere. In Scotland and bourbon country, you always set up your distillery next to a beautiful, pristine water source. And I just, I couldn't believe it. And even getting there, some of these villages are way out in the mountains, 4, 5, 6, 7-hour drives sometimes. And even Spanish is a second language in some of these places. This is Yucatec country, where they're speaking this native, ancient tribal dialect.
Wow,
what
an experience! What an experience! So, Patron. I think everybody's heard of Patron at this point, or tried it at least. It's the best-selling tequila in America. Now, why do you think that has taken off versus some of the other tequilas?
Well, in the book, I call Patron the Starbucks of tequila, and I think it's not a bad thing. I think that just like Starbucks, it's a brand that everybody recognized when the company started. They were the first ones who were like, that tequila you're drinking. Well, first of all, what you're drinking might not be very good, but should we really be paying $5, $10 for a bottle of tequila, or should we be paying $50? They told us, we think you should be paying $50 for a bottle of tequila.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed the game right there. Suddenly people thought, oh, wait, this is a luxury product? Nobody was thinking of tequila that way before.
True.
So they created the luxury tequila.
The luxury, yeah. They upped the game.
They upped the game. And because they had the backing, of this billionaire, Jean-Paul Mitchell, Jean-Paul DeJoria he has the Mitchell hairline. Hair care line. So they had the backing of this, now billionaire. And we're able to launch the product in a big way. And they also did, they did a lot of word of mouth advertising in the beginning. He had a lot of celebrity friends, so they had all their Hollywood friends taste it. And it got really big on the West Coast before it got to the East Coast and sort of spread around.
Yeah.
Here they are. Now it's like, that's what I've noticed that some people don't even know Patron is tequila. The name is so recognizable. They
just know the name. Yeah.
They just know it's good. Yeah. And it's a good starting point, Maybe start with Patron and you decide to start looking at some of the smaller, more artisanal producers. Yeah.
So on a serious note, in the book you mentioned that some of the high-profile tequila makers and their families are targets for kidnapping, which I was like, oh my gosh, so they can't even live in their towns, I guess, anymore. So you tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, I think we hear about the kidnappings, but it seems like we're a little far removed from what really goes on.
Yeah, well, things always seem to be shifting there. And this was, during the research of the book, so several years ago.
Okay.
But there are, in a small town like Tequila, which is a really small town, if you're a high-profile tequila producer and you have a big brand that and people know that you make a lot of money, some of these producers, unfortunately, are targeted.
Wow.
But, I personally was never in danger traveling alone in Mexico because I'm nobody. I blend in really well.
Yes, I can imagine that too.
But, if you're a high-profile person, you may be targeted. That surprised me. And it is very sad just because of where Tequila and Guadalajara, which is the main city in that state of Jalisco, which is where the heart of tequila country. Because of where it is, it's on the route of drug traffickers. Wow. On the other hand, in Oaxaca, I felt very safe in Oaxaca, and so did everybody else.
Okay,
because of where it is. It's not on any dangerous route.
It's good to hear. That's good to hear. Good news. So, okay, now we have so many tequilas, so little time at this point. What tips can you offer for people who want to select a good tequila? Like they're in their wine store or wherever it is, or even at the bar. What tips do you offer for picking the tequila out?
Yeah, well, above all, you want to be drinking 100% agave tequila.
Okay.
And that it'll say it right on the bottle, and I think it has to legally.
Okay.
You'll see it'll say Hecho en Mexico, which means made in Mexico, and it's with 100% agave. Other than that, I mean, talk to the bartender, talk to the clerk at the wine shop, and most of them know a little bit about the story of the brand. I always recommend trying to seek out a brand that maybe you've never heard of, someone, a small family-owned producer that is, just working on a small scale, because chances are, if they're working on a small scale, maybe they're making it using some of the more traditional methods, which can offer some really cool flavors. Like they're still cooking in ovens, and maybe even using a stone mill for milling. That can really create some really cool flavors. A lot of the brands have upgraded to more mechanized production methods that are still good, but it's always fun to try something super traditional.
Are there any?
And then maybe something more modern after.
Are there any small distilleries that maybe you would say we should look out for? Maybe there's a new exciting tequila out on the market that we may not have heard of that you know about?
Well, there are new ones all the time.
Every day, every minute.
There are new ones all the time. But there are a couple of not so new ones that I love, like Fortaleza, which is based right in tequila. Mm-hmm. It's actually made by a descendant of the Salsa family. But because Salsa is now owned by a great big company, he can't use the Salsa name. So his last name is Salsa.
Interesting.
His great grandfather started Salsa, but he has to use a different name for his brand.
Oh, wow.
He has a great tequila made super traditionally, cold, stoned, milled with a stone mill. These big old mills that they've used for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. Which just makes a really lovely soft flavor as opposed to when it's shredded using a modern machine. Mm-hmm. And I love Siete Leguas, which is another really traditional. Also, actually, they don't only mill using a stone mill. They still have mules pulled.
Oh, my God.
Mules. They're the only producers I know who still have mules pull around this big stone mill to mill the cooked agave. It's amazing to see. And the tequila is really lovely. So, those are a couple brands to start with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I could talk to you all day about this. I actually want tequila now. It's a little early.
Occupational hazard there.
It is.
I'm craving it.
Yeah, and I'm like, but you've given me a lot to think about in your book. Once again, I love it. I'm still reading it. There's a lot of information in it. And I recommend it to all of you. Now, where can people find you? What's your website? And where can they find your book?
You can find me at chantalmartineau.com. It's ChantalMartineau.com. And my book's in bookstores and on Amazon.
Awesome. And thank you so much again for your time. And everybody, if you want to learn more about tequila, definitely check out the book. And even if you want to know history, I think it's just good for history. Even if you're a history buff and you're not a big drinker, I'm telling you, read the book and you'll be inspired to go get some tequila. And thank you so much for listening. Until next time, peace, love, and soul, and cheers.